Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here today another new pen, and this is a little bit of a difference to the type of pen that I'm used to. This is a PenBBS pen from China. Now, I do already have a couple of these pens already in the Hawaiian gradient, and I decided I would pick up another couple, and this is one of them. And this is the PenBBS 308-54SF, and it's the Smog version. So let me open this up, and I know that you probably have the questions, why am I buying a PenBBS when I tend to buy a lot of Viscontis and Montegrappas and other pens? And I'll show you. So let's open this box and I'll show you the reason why. So it comes in this pretty standard sort of box, very lightweight sort of cardboard box, has a magnetic closure to it. And if I put the box down and I open it up, you'll see here, this is the reason why I decided to buy this pen. For any of you that know me or have seen a lot of my videos, you will realise that I do like these swirl patterns in pens, and I do have a Visconti Homo sapiens bronze swirl, and it's a pen I really do like. So I thought I would try and get some of these PenBBS pens, and you can see here the swirl patterns in here. It's actually very reminiscent of the swirls that you find in the Visconti Homo sapien bronze swirl, but for a lot cheaper price. One thing that you may also know is I tend to prefer medium and broad nibs, sometimes stub nibs. I don't typically go for a fine nib. The problem with most of these PenBBS pens is that they come with a fine nib. What you'll see here is that I have swapped this nib over for a Leonardo nib, and I actually have a video on this already on my channel that I recorded in 2018. And the reason why I decided I would buy these pens was not only because of the swirl. I knew that I wouldn't like the writing experience with these because I already have two PenBBS fine nibs, so I decided that I would actually put some JoWo nibs in here. Unfortunately, I had a look and I don't have any more remaining broad JoWo nibs I could actually I have spare that I could just swap in. I could remove them out of other pens, but I did have a couple of Leonardo nibs spare. So I decided for the time being I'd put a Leonardo broad nib in here. So that's what I have in here at the moment. It's a steel nib. I could put a gold nib in there if I wanted to. So basically what I did, and you'll be able to see this on the video that I'll put in a link in the description, that I basically removed the nib. It's a friction fit nib. I kept the original PenBBS fins here, and these are you've got to be very careful with these because these are very bendable. So when you try to pull the nib out, you really have to hold the nib here by the shoulders and try and wiggle and pull it out. So for me, I swapped the nib over, kept the feed, and I thought this would be a nice way where I would not only like the pen, but I would write with the pen as well. And you can see here that the pen is a little bit thinner than I'm used to normally in some of my pens more recently, but it is quite a decent length. You can see here by the crook of my hand. You can post the cap if you really want to. I don't think there's a need to be honest, but if you like posting your caps, then that's certainly something that you could do. Now, this is a cartridge converter pen, and although I thought I could potentially use the cartridge converter, there is an O-ring here, and you get this on all PenBBS pens. So the great thing here is I can remove the converter, screw the barrel back on, and actually fill with an eyedropper or an ink syringe the whole body of the pen with ink. And you can see here now that pattern looks so much better. And it will actually look even better, I think, once it's inked up. So that was my initial idea with getting this pen. And I thought it was quite a good idea. So I don't normally buy Chinese pens. I have some Jinhaos. I probably have about 7 or 8 Jinhaos. I have some X250s, X450s, X750s. I have a couple of PenBBS pens. This now actually doubles my PenBBS collection from 2 to 4. But I liked this swirl pattern, so I thought that this would be really, or could be, an ideal all-day writer for me. And although any pen could be an ideal all-day writer for me, I figured that this with a broad nib actually could go down quite nice. So that was the reason why I bought this. So I'm sure there will be many people out there that say, oh, you shouldn't have swapped the nib out, or why did you put a different nib in there? It's your own decision. And for me, I just cannot write with the Chinese fine nibs, but with a broader nib or a medium nib, I can. But look at these swirls here. These are actually pretty nice. There's quite a bit of depth going on here in these. So I'm actually quite impressed by, initially by the swirl patterns and the depth here. You can see there on that depth is quite nice. So for me, I really think this could be a good pen, and I like the size as well. Now, it is a lightweight pen, and we'll do a weight check in a moment. So let's do a measurement check. We have the length of the pen is about 145 millimeters in length, and the length of the cap is about 66 millimeters in length. And if we check the full length of the pen, now obviously this has a different nib on, but it's the same size nib. It's a number 6 nib. This is 130 millimeters from the tip of the tines. So it's actually a decent size pen, really. Now, in terms of weight check, let's have a look. Now, this pen is uninked, so we are looking at just over 18.5 grams for the full pen. The cap, we are looking at just over 8.5 grams. And the pen itself, we are looking at just under 8 grams. So the cap is actually more heavier than the body there. So I think what we will do here is we will ink it up. Now I am going to ink it up with a brown ink, I think. I think that would actually look quite nice against the white swirls in the body. So I think what I will do is I'm going to ink it up with this decanted version of Je Heban Lee Dete, and it's actually in a TWSBI crystal ink bottle, because I have great difficulty filling this ink up, and it's actually an ink that I like and I don't really use a lot. But I decanted several bottles into this TWSBI bottle here, so crystal inkwell, I should say. So I'm going to ink it up with that. Now what I'm also going to do is I have some silicone grease here, and this is from the writing desk in the UK, and this is just something that I prefer to do, just to silicone grease the threads around the body. Now there is an O-ring here, as I showed you earlier. There's an O-ring there, and I think, to be honest, I will just silicone grease these threads a little bit, just so that I don't have any issues. So if that O-ring were to fail or not withhold the ink, so I'm just applying just a very little bit of silicone grease around the threads here. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. A little bit goes a very long way. But what you do want to do is make sure that you don't get that silicone grease on things like the feed or the nib. So definitely try and wipe your fingers clean, because you definitely don't want that. So as I said, I'm going to ink this up with J Herbin Lidete, and it's a lovely brown ink, and it's an ink. I think it was one of my first brown inks. Now, I actually have so many inks. I have 270 bottles. Yes, 270 bottles of ink. So this is an ink I don't use a lot, and I really do need to use more of. So I decided I would try and use a few of my older inks. So let's see how this goes. I just dropped a bit of ink down the bottle there, but we will see. Look at that. That was effectively about 3 millilitres. 2.5 to 3 millilitres of ink that I put in there. So let's just make sure that this screws on tight. And then let me just put the cap back on. I want to make sure that I don't spill any of this ink here, because that will definitely create a bit of a mess. And here you can see some silicone grease. That silicone grease does get everywhere. So here you can now see the pen inked up, and this actually looks a lot better there. So I think sort of you can see here now the dark ink colour in there. Now most ink colours are going to look dark. Even a red ink is going to look dark, almost black. So you're really only going to see like very light pink or light orange or yellow inks that are going to be a lot lighter in colour. But like that, you can see here, that's pretty full body there. You can just about see the ink bubble there moving up and back and forth there in the body. So I think that really makes it look very nice there, those swirls. Really accentuates it. So I think what we'll do now is we'll do a writing sample. So we have the PenBBS, and that was me misaligning the nib there. This is actually quite a thick notepad, as you can see here. So I'm not normally used to writing this high on a notepad. So this is a PenBBS, and it's the 308, and I actually have a broad steel nib. And the ink in here is J Herbin, and it is the Lidete. Now you can see here it's actually starting to come out a little bit darker. The ink is actually making its way around the channel. Obviously I cannot prime the nib very easily. I can only shake the pen or start tapping it on the page, but it's starting to, the ink's starting to flow through a little bit more now. So you're starting to see a little bit more of a darkness colour of the ink here. So in terms of the nib, as I said, I swapped this out for a broad nib, so it's going to be a broad kind of line width here. Now it's a broad steel nib. You can push these Leonardo nibs a little bit more, almost about probably 1.5 times here, but you can see here that you're not going to get a huge amount of line variation out of this nib, but it is writing quite broad. So in terms of the wetness test, let's have a look here. You can see this nib that I have in here is actually quite wet. Now obviously the ink also plays a part as well in the wetness, but this is an A5 Rhodia grid notebook or notepad, and you can see here that this is actually quite a wet nib. So for me, I really do like this. This is a pen that I am definitely going to be writing a lot more with in the future, because this pattern here that we have is just stunning. So for me, I think this was a really good buy. I paid a little bit more for this pen because I bought it in the UK from a UK retailer, and I didn't buy it from China. You can buy these from China, but they do go very quickly. I was lucky that I was able to pick up this pen when I did. Obviously, I did pay a little bit more for it, but I still think it was worth the money that I paid for it. And I really like the idea that I can eyedropper this pen. That's really a plus for me. So this is a pen that I'm going to be probably writing with on a daily basis, and putting it through its pace and really trying to use it as a workhorse pen. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.